Yeah. Yeah. Not here to make you happy, not here to make you sad. Your feelings are irrelevant when debates are to be had. The Belfast Bapcast, loud and clear, covering the topics of the sphere, Working overtime to bring you many stories, waking up today the same Labour and Tories. A stage, it isn't our art to play, is bringing you knowledge in this way. No filter, no fuss, just tell unfiltered fact, much like the words on those Christian tracks.
Okay, so welcome to another edition of the Belfast Bapcast. Today's guest is Paula Bradshaw. She is the Alliance Party's Chief Whip at Stormont and MLA for South Belfast. She has long been active in the public health and community policy and now plays a central role in Alliance legislative work. We're joined by her today to explore the party's priorities and directions. So Paula, thank you for joining me today.
No problem.
So you've been a visible public servant now in Belfast for quite some time. So before we talk policy, I thought it'd be nice just to go for a bit more of a human approach and just ask what drives you personally in politics and what are your core moral values and stuff.
Yeah, well, I spent 19 years in the community and voluntary sector before becoming a full-time politician, and so I'm very much about trying to identify where the issues are and work with people to get them fixed. So I suppose I do spend a lot of time just out and about, knocking doors, going to residents' meetings. I've been there the last couple of nights, just really hearing, because I'm a great believer that you don't know what you don't know, and unless you're out there speaking to people, you'll never find out. So I do like to identify what the issues are in my constituency and seeing what I can do to address them. So I think that drives me. It's that completer in me that just likes to work on things and get them fixed.
So I'd say to get the stuff fixed, I mean, you're bound to have some core values that has brought you into politics in the first place, or something outside of wanting to, speak to that, constituents, etc.
Well, I suppose I would be very progressive in my outlook in life. I do think in many ways we have been kept back, and I was doing a bit of prep in advance of this today, and I thought, we just never really get things moving forward with any pace here in Northern Ireland, and I do like to, again, just like to modernise, regenerate, rejuvenate, and bring us into more in line with the rest of these islands. I think, other parts in the Republic or parts of England, Scotland, Wales, I think they are far ahead of us in some legislative places, like ending smacking, for example, of children. I think that we could do well.
Is that necessarily a bad thing, smacking children?
Well, what I was referring to, for example, is the equal protection campaign that the children's charities use, and it's really about removing the defence of reasonable chastisement, for example, which they've brought in other places. So, of course, if a child's hand's going to a fire, you would smack it out of the way, but it's in that instant, it's where you would use an implement or whether you would leave a mark. So it's more about just trying to provide the protections that children in other parts of these islands would benefit from, for example. But there's other examples as well that I think that we could do well to pick up here and obviously adapt for our own particular circumstances. But I do think there's plenty more we could be doing to move things forward.
So Alliance Party would often describe itself as a party of compassion, equality and fairness. What does that actually mean in real world terms?
Well, I chair the committee for the executive office, for example, at the assembly here, and last year we conducted an inquiry into gaps in equality legislation, for example. And as you know, there will be a lot of protected groups, disability, elderly, women, religion, LGBT, gender, etc. So I wanted to see again where we were lagging behind, and unfortunately we're long behind other parts of these islands again in terms of making sure that people are protected in terms of access to public services, that they're not facing harassment or any form of discrimination. So there's plenty of work again in that space that we could be doing here to better protect people from, say, discrimination or harassment.
Okay, so you personally have championed social justice causes. Which one would you say, in your view, was what would define your time in office, or the one that you're most proud of?
Well, I've been working over the years in terms of LGBT rights, for example. When I was health spokesperson, I would have done a lot more work in that space in terms of policy. And again, another area that I did quite a lot of work in was in relation to abortion, as I would call it, more like women's reproductive healthcare rights. So I was very much involved in the blocking of the severe fetal impairment bill that was being brought forward by the DUP a couple of years ago, because I felt that it was just in some ways almost cruel to women, and so it was very instrumental in, because at one point in the chamber it looked like we were going to lose that vote, but I was able to really position it in terms of human rights. And I think the Sinn Féin, for example, in that debate they changed their position. So I think that's probably one of the proudest moments. It's not that I'm pro-abortion, but I do feel that it would have been a bill that would have very seriously impacted on women. It didn't make allowances for any unintended consequences, like more women travelling. It didn't take account of this particular circumstances women would have found themselves in the lifetime of choices that they would have to make. So I suppose that's one of the defining moments. And again, it's not about being pro-abortion, but it's more around allowing women with their medical practitioners to make those informed decisions on the best circumstances for them and their families.
Okay. Would you say that morality guides politics, or politics defines morality?
Well, I'm not sure it's necessarily morality. I think it's about your core values and your aspirations.
That's a straightforward question. Do you think that morality guides politics, or politics defines morality?
Ooh, I would say it's probably your own personal morality will guide your own politics, but I think in some ways we do need to base our decisions, our voting patterns based on evidence. Because we can have our own position on things, but is it the best for other people across society? And so we are here to not just represent ourselves and our own personal opinions, but also to reflect on the evidence and what's best for the constituents who have elected us to represent them in that chamber.
Okay, so you began your career standing under the Ulster Unionist Conservative banner. Back then you were more aligned with traditional and conservative values. So how do you explain such a radical shift to the Alliance Party?
Well, first of all, I stood first for the Ulster Unionist Party in the late, I think it was 2008 or something like that, and so that was the first venture into it. Look, I would still be a small U unionist. There's no, I don't hide that, and in the Alliance Party, people can have their own constitutional position. It's just not the thing that drives us. I'm from a mixed marriage. My mum's from Andersonstown, my dad's from the York Road. So I wasn't brought up in a house where we were heavily saturated with politics. In many ways, we didn't discuss it. I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. But I'm just naturally very unionist, and not very unionist. I would be unionist in my outlet, but obviously also appreciate my Irish roots. But I think, look, I think that it's difficult to be a unionist and a progressive at the same time, and that's part of the reason why I left the party. I wanted to see us progressing more in terms of those issues around LGBT rights. For example, when I was in those early days, like we didn't have same-sex marriage, for example, and again, I worked hard with others, many others, in terms of the campaign to bring that about. So I suppose it was a natural progression, and I joined the Ulster Unionist Party in the early 2000s, whenever we were just after the Good Friday Agreement and stuff. So I see it as a journey. I don't think that it's unusual here in Northern Ireland. At that time, the Alliance Party had a small number of MLAs, and we now have a large number, and a lot of people have moved from more constitutional positions to progressive centre ground positions. So I think in some ways I'm more reflective of how society has moved in that last 20 years.
back to abortion for a moment, and obviously it's not, men shouldn't be talking about abortion, but I'm going to anyway. So the Alliance has supported the decriminalisation of abortion, and I, but in practice we've seen shortages in maternity care and overstretched resources. So how does promoting wider abortion access align with improving women's health outcomes overall?
Well, that's look. We're all about the transformation of services in Northern Ireland, all healthcare services, and we're not about every street corner or every town having its own hospital. We do feel that if we better aligned and better located our healthcare services, there will actually be more money to go around. So I'm getting to a point. But I suppose the other point around when I was working on the severe fetal impairment bill, for example, the people who were the most fierce champions of that were ones that said, we needed better support families, and we haven't heard a word about that since. We have seen no progress in terms of more services and support for women or for families who have children with disabilities. So
you said you weren't necessarily pro-abortion.
I'm not pro-abortion. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-choice.
Well, that would be pro-abortion then, really. And
no, it's not. No, it's not. It's pro-choice. It's pro-choice.
Pro-choice would be pro-abortion. So you're allowed, like, you're happy with the option of abortion to be there if you're pro-choice. So that's pro-abortion.
Being pro-abortion would be to try to dictate to women and put that forward as the preferred option. My position is and always has been that people should have the support of their healthcare professionals to make informed decisions, and that they should have those options open to them. Of course, if women want to continue with their pregnancy, of course, if they want to proceed with the full knowledge of the information in front of them at their scans, their 10 weeks and 20-week scans, then absolutely those women and their families need all the support they can get. My point was that
every life deserve protection under healthcare. So, where does the line draw? Like 12 weeks, 20 weeks, 24 weeks? What? Where's the line?
Well, we obviously we've got our legislation now in terms of the framework, the amendment.
Where does life begin, and where does the protection for that life begin? Like, if every life deserves protection under healthcare, where does that start?
Well, there's long-standing precedent. I'm not using the right word here, but I believe that life begins at birth. There are others that maybe believe it's in terms of that. I believe that it is the woman's right to choose, and I think that it is wrong that any man or any person would try to tell them what they do with their body.
Right. Okay. And what about what they're doing with the other body that's inside them?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's been a long-standing.
Well, there's no debate. The science is there. Like, what specific safeguards does your party propose for like late-term cases, for example?
Well, the legislation
where they're viable from very early on. So,
well, the legislation is very clear around a woman can't just abort a healthy baby without any.
They can now with the NC.
No, they can't. They can't.
They can without prosecution. Yeah, they can.
They can't. That is a total misrepresentation of the.
It's not a misrepresentation of the legislation. The legislation still only allows the term abortion done legally, but they will not prosecute under any circumstances, even through inconvenience. So tell me how that is not.
You need to temper your language. It's not about an inconvenience.
It's not about tempering language, and it is about an inconvenience because, if compassion extends to the vulnerable, where does the unborn child fit in?
There has to be two medical professionals that would work with them. And if you think,
So the
now,
NC
sorry, excuse me, sorry, just 1 wee second here.
I'm just
You're a
clarifying my
man.
point, and then you can step in, okay? Right?
You're a man.
The NC
You have
one,
never
I know
carried.
I'm a
You have
man.
never carried a baby.
I never said I did carry a baby.
And I'm just going to tell you this, and you need to deal with this,
I
and
don't
men
need to deal with anything. Men don't need to deal with anything, and women need to get rid of this attitude that men don't have the right to speak on these issues, Paula. It takes two people.
No,
to make
but
a
I'm
child,
trying to explain to
and
you.
it's two people that-
I'm trying to explain to you this misconception that women would try to abort children just willy-nilly because it was inconvenient.
Some have.
No. Are you saying at late term? The scenario that you have presented here, Mark, is that a woman would walk in.
The scenario I presented is the NC one adjustment to the current abortion bill. I have not presented any scenario. I just said that would be up to term. They can abort the child without any form of prosecution under law. That is what's stated in the bill. So am I wrong?
What
am I wrong?
No, you are wrong. Are you saying
tell me
that
how
a
I'm
woman
wrong.
walk
Tell me
in,
how that's wrong.
if you would
Tell me
let,
how that wording of the bill is wrong.
I think we're finished here because you're not letting me actually explain.
No, you work away.
Okay, thank you.
Not here to make you happy, not here to make you sad. Your feelings are irrelevant when debates are to be had. The Belfast Bapcast, loud and clear, covering the topics of the sphere, Working overtime to bring you many stories. Waking up there, the same labor and Tories. The stage, it isn't our art to play. Is bringing you knowledge in this way. No filter, no fuss, just tell unfiltered fact. Much like the words on those Christian tracks.